Hello there, welcome to day two of my director's diary. Uh, it's an amazing second day of rehearsals. Today, um, on this play, I had a plan effectively because I put together my rehearsal schedule, and my plan was to start because we were missing an actor, was to start the day with 30 minutes of actors doing their movement and warm up and meditation, whatever, breath work. And then we were going to do some table work to utilize the actor that was there because, she's in all the scenes, on a lot of the scenes. So that was the plan. But I made a key error, which was around not looking at my rehearsal schedule before I started, which meant I went in and I was a little bit discombobulated, and it led to effectively the movement session that I had planned for the afternoon being pushed forward to the morning. Uh, Lucky for me, whilst I was having a chat with the writer, kind of fixing up some moments in the script, I realized that and I went and spoke to the movement director and were able to shift it a little bit so that the last hour, 12 to 1 before lunch, we started table work, breaking down the script. By uniting, that's what I mean, breaking down the script into kind of manageable size uh, moments that are led by events, an event being something that shifts the intention of everyone in that scene. It could be an entrance, it could be someone doing something so dramatic, or something could be someone saying something that's dramatic enough for people to go, okay, well, that's changed how I see you, I changed how I feel about you. Um, so we were able to squeeze in a good 50 minutes of that. And then we had lunch and came back in the afternoon, and we jumped straight into doing 45 minutes of a session, a movement session, which allowed the actor that was leaving to also have something physical that they got to do. And the movement director also continued with their session that I had cut short earlier. So she was very graceful enough to allow me to do that. We then, had a 15-minute break and came back at 3. So I like working in hour bursts, I find like if typically if I know I'm thinking, oh, I'm gonna have to do this for 2.5 hours, can be overwhelming for the actors to be sat down for that long as well, and the creative team, or stage management team. So I like hour bursts. So we said, okay, 15 minutes, 3 p.m. we come back. We came back and we started uniting, breaking down the script. So that was helpful because what I did in that case, because the actor wasn't present, I fast forwarded into that scene where she doesn't speak as much. Another character enters and that kind of shuts her down for a bit. So we focused on that. And I realized that I had a lot more time to actually fill. So decided to then include after we'd done that section, have another break, and when we came back, we fast forwarded. And this is something I wouldn't typically do when we're uniting, to fast forward into another. I like on another section, I like for it to be chronological so we know the unit numbers. So effectively what we did was almost we broke down the scene into a mini scene. So when that new character enters, we started the units because you can't guess how many units you're going to have previously. So I just said, okay, let this be unit 1. And we did that. But when we started it, and sometimes that happens with actors, and myself, I'm an actor as well, is that we actors, I'm going to talk about actors in the third person, but actors, they tend to, not all of them, either be for table work, as one of the actor was, or they can find it a bit uh, daunt, not daunting, but difficult to kind of wrap their head around. One of the key questions is around, well, with uniting, what is that like? What do you actually um where does the unit begin? What constitutes as a unit? Is subject change a unit? But I think there's a good way of kind of thinking about units as effectively, as I was saying, using event especially, an event being a moment in the action when a change occurs, and this change affects everyone present. And this is courtesy of Katie Mitchell's director's craft. It could be all exits and entrances are events. It's worth, as I mentioned before, not mistaking a subject change for an event. It's purely an intensification of a character's intention. So when you unit, you're using events to dictate your uniting. So that's something that we worked on and we discussed. And of course, there's the kind of disagreement around, well, I don't know if this is a unit. It feels like a subject change, but they're still on the same trajectory, on the same path. And I use this kind of train analogy where you jump in on the train and you're still on the same track, right? And then something might happen where you shift and move into another track, right? That acts as a possible unit change. But sometimes you might be on the same train and you may have seen, people from certain parts of the world who jump out of trains and run alongside it, usually in South Africa, right? They run alongside it and then they get back on. So that can create a sort of a subunit. And we find that we did some of those subunits. Um, what I also find very interesting is that sometimes actors might beef your unit. They might not be okay, or and they might not agree with the way you united. But if you just agree with what they're presenting and then allow them to read it, and they will realize themselves, oh, actually, there's clearly a shift here. And you come back and say, okay, based on your reading, it's clear that there's a slight shift in unit. So that's something that we worked on and that filled the day. It is going to take up the day. It can be tedious, but I would suggest definitely stick with it. Stick with it because it will be helpful when you start blocking in week two, and we'll talk more when my other diary entries, and we talk more as well in the session 3 when we talk about blocking, right? So definitely watch that session if you haven't. And if you have, definitely listen for upcoming diary entries. But so yeah, so the uniting using events can come across very tedious, but actually it's very, very useful and actors appreciate it. And in the end, they created some really, more detailed work, and it's going to get even more detailed. And it allows you as well, just as I say in session 2 with uniting, it allows you to break down the script in manageable sections and chunks like a piece of steak, but also to flag up things that you need. Oh, we need a prop. Oh, we need this. Oh, we need sound. Notes to LX. Can we look out for this? Or notes to by LX, I mean lighting designers, lighting effects. So LX, lighting designer, SX, sound designer, sound effects, right? So note to sound designer, sound design or sound department, we're gonna need a piece of music for this section on page 35. So you can communicate with them in that way so they know what's going on. So that's effectively what we did. We ended the day, but we also interspliced it with some movement work that was a surprise one. The plan was for it to be in the afternoon, but we did it in the morning. And some of you are thinking, but wait, your movement person was available? She made a sort of avail herself available extra actually for that, which was great. So it was amazing for us to have that. Usually I would want her to come in week 2 or want them to come in week 2. But nowadays, I'm actually experimenting with movement people being there very early on and allowing the actors to break up the rehearsal so that you don't have the monotony of the same thing. So if you do have the privilege and the budget of having a movement person in the first week, then please do. It does help. I also, had a discussion with my writer, kind of dramaturgical conversations about an hour long whilst they were doing the movement work. So you can, split your rooms up where you can do and catch up on some creative chat whilst the other creatives are working with the actors. So that's day 2. I've gone on a little bit longer. But these diaries, there's no rhyme or reason or kind of time on it. But I appreciate you tuning in, and please do make sure that you watch the other sessions. And I'm so excited to hear more about your directing journey and your directing future. See you soon.